Good evening and happy Easter. We are finishing Genesis chapter 15 and moving into Genesis chapter 16, continuing to look at the covenant that God has established with Abraham. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites." Genesis chapter 16. Now Sarai, remember, she will become Sarah. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had an Egyptian maid whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "Behold now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my maid, it may be that I shall obtain children by her." And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her maid, and gave her to Abram her husband as a wife. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. Now, in the ancient Near East, it was common practice for a wife to allow her handmaiden to become pregnant by her husband, and then the child that was born of that would be considered as a child of the wife. Here, there was some sort of change, and Hagar begins to show contempt for Sarai and retains the claim of the child as being her own. Verse 5, Sarai said to Abram, "May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my maid to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me." But Abram said to Sarai, "Behold, your maid is in your power. Do to her as you please." Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, maid of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She said, "I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai." The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit to her." The angel of the Lord also said to her, "I will so greatly multiply your descendants that they cannot be numbered for multitude." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Behold, you are with child, and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has given heed to your affliction. He shall be a wild ass of a man, his hand against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen." So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, "Thou art a God of seeing." For she said, "Have I really seen God and remained alive after seeing him?" Therefore the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son. And Abram called the name of the son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. Now God established a covenant with Abram, but God also established a covenant with Hagar, the handmaiden. God connects with all of us. I have to imagine that Abram, when he was 86, and Sarah, who was a few years younger, thought that this probably was the only way that the covenant would be fulfilled. God had promised Abram and Sarai many descendants, meaning they would have children. But here Sarah is older, Abram's almost 90, and so Sarah gives in and allows her handmaiden to become pregnant, thinking, all right, this must be how God intends for it to happen. And so when Hagar started to view Sarah with contempt and really claim that child as her own, both Abram and Sarah would have thought, well, when is God going to fulfill this covenant? We'll look at that more tomorrow. Remember that from Abram to Sarai to Hagar to Ishmael, God hears and sees us all. Good evening.